Folks, welcome into the closing line for November 19th. How about that? November 9th, 2017, presented by SportsbookReview.com. Be your host tonight, Donnie RightSide. It is Thursday. That means Thursdays with Teddy covers. We'll bring him in just a few moments here. But, folks, I'd be remiss if I don't tell you about the good things that are going on at SportsbookReview.com. Right up on deck, college basketball is going to start up tomorrow. A lot of fun stuff going on. Me and the big man on campus did a lot of college previews there that you want to check out on the site with sportsbookreview.com. Also, folks, if you haven't checked out, if you want to track lines, free odds service, one of the best in the business, sbrodds.com. Also, give us a follow on Twitter at SBR Sports Picks and also, at SBR Sports Picks and also SBRpicks.com. And on YouTube, give us a subscription there. Hit the subscribe button because right now you would know me and Teddy are going live right now. Get that notification, join us, and have some fun here on the chat box. Teddy, it's Thursday. Love it, brother.
We got live lines right now, like they just got posted for college hoops.
How are you going to concentrate on the show, Teddy? Now, how are you going to concentrate on that coming out page?
Bet Online has numbers up. The bookmaker number there. Here they come. Here the bookmaker. Literally, as we speak, the bookmaker numbers are about to come up. They should be up any moment. I'm seeing them. This isn't good. I'm seeing them elsewhere. Why aren't they on the SBR odds page?
Somebody get on it. Somebody's asleep at the wheel down there in Costa Rica.
What's going on? No, it looks like they're coming, but anyhow, they just got posted. So if you want to bet college hoops, leave us on in the background and go take a look at the numbers.
And get after it there. Yeah, we're going to have some fun tonight, Teddy. A lot going on tonight. Got some action tonight. Obviously, NBA on the hardwood. You got NHL. You got an NFL game tonight on a Thursday night there with Seattle and Arizona. We got the weekend card going on. And as it's always a lot of fun, folks, if you're in the chat box, you want me and Teddy to, go around, maybe look at a game that you're looking at, be more than happy to break it down and have some fun. Teddy, how was your week last week, Teddy? Why don't we start with that one?
The week was okay, and then I lost my big play on Monday night. I had a big play on the Packers Monday night that kind of ruined everything, unfortunately, and it was wrong side. So when you lose your big play, it doesn't matter what you did, and especially when it's Monday night. That's what your week was. So in the end, not great. How about you?
No, it was pretty good. I mean, I won one more game than I lost, so I went overall in the weekend 3-2. I've been really good this year, Teddy, in NFL football. Still find to meander my way around college football. Still a couple games below 500, but NFL is paying the bills around these parts. And as I say, if I can win one more game than I lose typically during that week, I'll take that as a week and I'll keep moving on in that fashion. So not too bad. Like tough. And to me, honestly, Teddy, looking at this NFL card for the way I like to look at games, one of the tougher weeks I've seen coming up here.
There's a handful of games that are, in my opinion, worthy of a wager, but I don't know that it's ever easy in the NFL. One of the advantages.
I struggle with double-digit lines in the NFL. And I'm not talking about winning or losing. I struggle handicapping double-digit lines typically in the NFL.
So you throw them out.
I do. That's exactly what I do. So every time I see one come up, I get angry at it.
I don't disagree with that. I really don't get involved in a lot of double digits. There's one or two this week that have piqued my interest, but I haven't bet either one yet. There's no urgency in either game, and I don't know that I'm going to get to the window in either game. So I'm not someone that's going to play a lot of double-digit dogs, and I'm not someone that's going to play a lot of double-digit chalk in the NFL. So in theory, I'm with you. And a lot of the teams that we want to be betting on, I made a lot of money with the Rams so far this season. Rams are coming off a 50-point game. You don't bet on teams off a 50-point game. It's a very negative long-term subset. You want to make a case for the Texans? Well, I don't. I worry about the mentality of that team. And, someone's trying to say, well, they still have all the same players. It's just Tom Savage. Yeah. Well, the difference in mentality between Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson is, we saw, look what happened in Denver last week where, the offense didn't work and then bang, the defense tired of trying. I certainly worry about that from the Texans. So you take a game like that, I throw it right out. Boom. No, I have 5 minutes with it and I'm done with it. And over the course of an NFL card, as you're going through it, as you handicap it, I'll do that on a normal week for 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes more games than that. I'm looking at this side, I know I'm not playing it. I'm looking at that side, I know I'm not playing it. And that's the end. The total doesn't pique my interest, and that's that. So I'm not always supremely focused on, I got to break down every edge in every single game on the board. A lot of games get thrown out fairly early in the process, and that's just one example.
No, you're right about that. Looking at some games, Teddy, because we get towards this part of the year, the middle season, like middle of the season, you get to know like some teams that are in it look like they're going to make the playoff push, and some teams that look like they're just ready to hit the reset button. One of those games that's real interesting to me, Teddy, and it's a bad football game the way it sends up, because between both of these teams, they only have one combined win. If you look at 271, 272 on Sunday afternoon, 4:25 Eastern time, 1:25 Pacific kick. You know, the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers, one team looking to evaluate what they have for the future, a la the 49ers, and one team that looks like they can't wait to fire their head coach, so where's the motivation? When you look at a game like this, Teddy, to me, the Giants overall, if you look just at the roster, a more talented team right now than the 49ers, but where's the mindset where the team's going out saying, do I really want to get hurt? Why are we flying 3,000 miles to play this football game? We're not going to the playoffs, and I hate my head coach.
San Fran might not even have 45 healthy players to suit up for the active roster. Okay. The 49ers this week, in my opinion, and this is their game. If they're going to win a game, this is it. Effort-wise, you would expect more from San Fran than you were from the G-Men. But I'm not going to put my money on a winless team at this stage of the season, a game they have to win to cover. You know, they're not good. The reason they're winless because they're not good. And when you're talking about the very worst teams in the NFL, and in my power ratings, these are two of the three very worst teams in the NFL. I don't want to ask one of these teams to win the game. If the Giants come with something, they should win. But do you trust the Giants to come with something? I don't. I've seen that team. You know, look at the comments coming out this week where, you know, the veterans are saying, hey, well, he's kind of lost the team. Those are meaningful quotes. I won't get there with the G-Men. I won't get there with the 49ers. That's an easy game. It's a very easy game. You look at it for 2 minutes. You say, I will not be able to look at myself in the mirror losing money with bad team. You know, why? You know? Why?
Yeah, that's such a good point there. You know, with bad teams or teams that you don't expect it from us. And the one little caveat I had on Sunday, Teddy, the one game I lost was going with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I preface this by saying I got a good laugh out of it. I put the game out, put the game in, and I was like, good, all right, I like it. I like where it sits at, because I was able to get 6.5 and 7 in some outlets where some people were able to get. This is before Leonard Fournette was out. The minute he goes out, drops a point or two, and then comes back. But I'm sitting there going, Teddy, I finally got one of those breaks. You know what? I didn't see Leonard Fournette getting suspended. I put the game in, and literally 10 minutes after it, Fournette is suspended. So I pat myself on the stomach saying, you know what, man? It's going to be a pretty good day for me. I'm going to lead this off with the Cincinnati Bengals as a winner. And they went out and got train wrecked in that football game. And you're right. When you look yourself in the mirror, you go, I just backed Andy Dalton on the road versus a damn good defense. What in the world was I thinking about?
And, Cincinnati is a train wreck team. You have the veteran squads with high expectations that enter November, and they're not going anywhere. And you have the longtime head coach who's been there, and now, well, is he going to be there next year? There's no contract for Marvin Lewis for next year. I worry about the Bengals down the stretch. And I worry more about that kind of team down the stretch than I do a Cleveland Browns or a San Francisco 49ers. Or Indianapolis Colts, where the effort's been there. I don't know the effort's going to be there for Cincy. I really don't. Don't trust that team one iota.
You're right about that, Ted. I want to bring up a point also with the San Francisco 49ers. You heard when they made the trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, giving up the second-round pick, sort of that evaluation process, because obviously he's not under contract for next year, which immediately came up when we were on the roundtable. It was Drew Martin, Ian Cameron, Big Man on Campus, and myself. And they're asking for almost like maybe a buy low team for the rest of the year. And one of those teams I wanted to look at and I wanted to get your opinion on, Teddy, was once Jimmy Garoppolo gets a grasp of the offense, I believe their bye week's coming up, and then week 11, he would be eligible probably to start. Maybe the offensive line comes around a little bit more healthy, maybe get some wide receivers in there that are healthy again. Do you picture that type of team as a buy-on type team? Because obviously, I don't know if they're going to win football games, but maybe being below the market with the chance where they're saying, hey, look, we're still trying to go out there and win some football games. We now have a competent quarterback in there. Do you look at situations like that as you head down the stretch in the NFL?
Kyle Shanahan's offense is the single most complicated offense in the NFL. Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to pick up that offense in a bye week. San Francisco, who doesn't have enough healthy players to field a 40-man, 45-man roster this week, what was it, 16 QB hits that Beathard took last week? Beathard is the sacrificial lamb for that team. He will continue to get concussed on a weekly basis. and they'll suck it up, and they'll do it again next week. I don't think we're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you don't think they want to give him maybe even a look-see late in the season? Now, the one good thing that you have is with the NFL, you have multiple tag levels: the franchise tag, the first-round tender, second-round tenders. You can do that, which they will. They're not just going to trade for the guy and give it up. But I know sort of that little code that they're saying out there, like, hey, we didn't want to play him, but if C.J. Beathard goes out there and it's just awful, you can't even install your system because it doesn't run properly. But I agree. I can't put Jimmy Garoppolo out there if, a couple guys in my offensive line are banged up and has nobody to throw the football to. It's sort of counterproductive in that situation. So you're right there.
I mean, when you talk about, who's a sleeping giant in the second half, and I'm looking at like yards per play stats over here and turnover stats over here, what team's going to turn around. And, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers, are they a sleeping giant? Pittsburgh the last 3 weeks is the best statistical profile in the NFL. They didn't play well, great over the first half of the season. But then, you read Chad Millman's, oh, yeah, here are the Steelers. They're the Super Bowl favorites. They're laying 10 on the road against a Indy team that's been feisty. Where's the value? No, not there. Jacksonville. I was on the other side of that game compared to you last week. I made a lot of money with the Jags. I made a lot of money with the Rams so far this season. You and I both in the midst of good NFL campaigns. But are those value-laden teams moving forward? No. Very disappointed with the Rams scoring 51 last week. The Eagles, another team. You made a ton of money with the Eagles the first half of the campaign. Are they the type of team you're likely to make money with if you bet them every game? Not necessarily. Dallas. Maybe the Cowboys are a team that I think that. I mean, I continue to be impressed with Dallas. I continue to think that without Zeke Elliott, they will be undervalued. And, they're as good as anybody in the NFC, and the markets aren't pricing them that way. Did you see the look-ahead number for Dallas-Philly?
I did not see that. What do you got
Philly
over there?
-1 at Dallas.
That's shit. Come on, we're all over the Eagles, Teddy. Come on, get on the Eagles bandwagon.
And that was pre-Zeke being out. Let me just make. I'm 99% sure. I got so much crap on this. You know what it's like when it gets to November, dude. Your desk.
Oh yeah, my desk. If you look to the left, you can't see the left of my computer.
Ah, crap! I left it downstairs. I was outside looking at it.
That's interesting. -1 on that, huh? That's
so that I mean, just that's where Dallas is thought of in the markets. That's where the Cowboys are priced right now. Yep. So we have to be. I think Dallas is the potential value. The Vikings, another team that I think has a lot of potential in the second half, and maybe the Redskins too. I have a Redskins under season win tickets in my pocket. I don't like that bet right now. I'm concerned about that bet right now. They had 4 starting offensive linemen out. 3 of them could come back this week against Minnesota. So we're not talking about the Trent Williams, the only guy that looks like he's going to be out long term.
Yeah, no, it looks, and again, maybe they'll get the tight end back. Jordan Reed will come back. Crowder will come back, give him a little bit more options there at wide receiver. But yeah, they're always feisty at home, Washington Redskins. I mean, just look at the way outside of that Dallas game, which was a monsoon rain game, which was completely flipped around on that blocked field goal, which was returned basically for a touchdown there. But hey, Dallas is playing really good football at this point. I want to see how it goes down, this weekend with Atlanta. I think that's a huge game that's going to determine whether or not either one of those teams, to me, Teddy's going to make the playoffs. Because number one, you're going to have the tiebreaker. I think both of those teams will probably be fighting at the end of the year for that spot. And whoever gets that tiebreaker with the win over the other might get the nod heading into the playoffs there.
Atlanta, Dallas?
Yeah.
Atlanta's not a playoff team, and Dallas is.
Well, hold on. Now, if Atlanta goes 5-4 this week.
Have you watched Atlanta play?
I have watched Atlanta play. A tough 3-game stretch they had there on the road. Now they come home to the Dome.
I watched Atlanta play like 5 times. And at no point in any of those games have I looked at Atlanta and said, wow, this team's good. Wow, I'm impressed with the Falcons. Wow, look, the defense is making us out. Wow, look, the offense is clicking. Wow, look at Atlanta. And right now, here we are in November. Atlanta's got the best yards per play differential in the NFL, plus 1.1, which is the same differential they had last year. And the sharp guys I'm talking to around that, oh, look at Atlanta's yards per play. They're just as good as they were last year. Sure they are. No, they're not. They're not.
Now, hold on. Now, let's just say Atlanta beats the Cowboys this weekend. You still think the Cowboys are going to be a playoff team?
Absolutely.
No, without Zeke? Come on.
Who's Zeke? What's a running back worth? A running back is worth
here
nothing.
We go again. What's a running back worth? Come on. We don't have to go with the Arizona argument, do we, again?
You will see. You will see on Sunday whether Zeke Elliott matters to the Dallas Cowboys. And you will see for the next 6 weeks. And you and I can have this argument now, every week between now and then. And you know what? If Atlanta kills Dallas, and from a spot perspective, it's a pure Atlanta spot. It really is a pure Atlanta spot this week. No question in that regard, especially with Dallas with the look ahead to the game against Philly next week. But given the spot, even if the Falcons dominate this game, I'm going to look at you next Thursday, and we're going to have the exact same argument, and I'm going to say Zeke Elliott is not worth it. At the most, you can say he's worth a point, more like half point, something like that to the spread. And that's what he's worth.
I would agree with you spread-wise. I would agree with you there. But I like
that's what he's worth on the field. That's what he's actually worth. That's not like, oh, this is what the point, Deshaun Watson is worth more than the 7-point difference between Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson because the team believed in Deshaun Watson and they don't believe in Tom Savage. And there may be something like that for Dallas. I'm not buying it, though. I think they'll run the football just fine with or without Zeke Elliott on the field. And I think Dallas is the better team than Atlanta. Even if Atlanta wins the game 35-0, you're going to ask me next Thursday, well, you change your – no. Dallas is good. Atlanta's mediocre.
No, I hear you on that. But I just think, if you say Atlanta is going to win that game, Eagles are going to probably clean up on the Cowboys too. I know the line's close, but the Eagles, to me, do everything that the Cowboys don't want to happen. I mean, they're going to be able to have that front seven, lock in the running game. You no longer have that explosive running back with Ezekiel Elliott. You're going to lean on Dak for the first time. It's going to be interesting. You're going to find out a lot, which I think Dak's a really good quarterback. You're going to find out a lot about that kid and what he has options now that he doesn't have that explosion at running back, that every time you have a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, Zeke's going to be able to get that first down. So we'll see what happens there. But I agree with you. There's a good spot for Atlanta, though.
You're saying silliness. They're going to lean on Dak for the first time. Have you watched the Cowboys game for the last 2 years? Dak Prescott goes on the road, and they lean on him all the time. You remember the game at Arizona? They're out of it early.
Take Zeke off of that team. Stop. Now, this is blasphemy. You have the number 1 running back in the NFL behind center with that offensive line. Now you take a little bit of chinks out of that offensive line where they moved on. You take away the best running back in the NFL, and you're telling me that that's not going to make any difference with the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm telling you that Dak Prescott has proven his mettle in hostile environments, not once, not twice, not 3 times, repeatedly. Through the first year and a half of his NFL career, he has been a monster, even in games where Zeke Elliott didn't have room to run. Dak Prescott is a remarkably underrated quarterback, and it seems like what round you are drafted in stays with the quarterback forever. It does. It stays with Kirk Cousins. It stays with Dak Prescott. It doesn't matter what round you're drafted in. It matters how good a quarterback you are at the NFL level. And Dak Prescott has done nothing but make plays consistently for the Dallas Cowboys, even in adverse situations. And I'm no Dallas fan. And they still
have 3 losses this year. I'm telling you, it's gonna have an impact where you no longer can hand that football to that explosive running back. And Dak's going back to man, I got to make something happen as opposed to just sitting back. Because all they had to do was sit back. You get good pass protection. I'll hand off to Ezekiel Elliott. I'll throw a couple jump balls to Dez. I think Dak is a really good quarterback, but now I want to see what his mettle is, that he doesn't have, quote unquote, the best offense in the football league, and I'm going to have him operate under tougher conditions. Dak or wide receiver Dez Bryant's a little bit banged up coming this game. Williams a little bit banged up. You don't have Ezekiel Elliott in this game. If they come through and they beat Atlanta this weekend, and Dak throws for over 300 yards in that football game and wins it, I'll say, you know what? That's pretty damn impressive.
Don't you want to be on them the week before? That's the whole thing. People are like, people are saying now, look how good Philly is. Like waking up to, look at the Rams. Look at it's like, no, proactive, not reactive. Des Bryant.
But I can't. Like my rule of thumb though is I can't bet a football team the week after they lose their most explosive player. I just can't do it.
No, you don't. The beauty of, and this is the beauty of betting. And it really is truly the beauty of betting. They've got to put a number up for every game.
Yes, they do.
All right. That's their job. Every freaking game, side, total, first half, team total, whatever. There's a number up. If you don't want to bet it, you leave it alone. You find the game that you like, I know plenty of guys who've done very, very well for themselves, and they might make 3 bets a week. You know what I mean? They're not loading up. They're not going nuts. They're finding teams and situations and statistical profiles or spots or overreactions or whatever it is that you look for, and betting them, coming away with positive expectation wagers. We can pass. You're allowed to pass.
Absolutely. Teddy, one game that I do pass on, I like to pass on this quite a bit in NFL action. If we just take a look at one snapshot game, 265, 266. We're all contrarian bettors, and we, sometimes we want to take some angles in there. Again, it looks like when you open up that line and you give Cleveland off a bye, getting a little healthier now, double digits. Teddy, pull me off. I haven't bet Cleveland in a while this year. The only game I actually lost with Cleveland was on a totals play, which was completely awful because Cleveland was awful. But you look at that line, just say every week it seems like, I don't even want to say undervalued because they're getting 10, 11, opened up at 12, maybe 13 in some places. Double digits off a bye. Detroit comes off that Monday nighter. We finally beat Green Bay in Green Bay. Let's take a breath. We have Cleveland on deck. What are you looking at this game from that perspective? Can you finally get back on Cleveland, or is just one of those teams you say they're just so inept as an organization, I don't want any part of that football team?
Yeah, I've only lost one bet with the Browns too. I'm proud of myself for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, week 2. It was week 2 at Baltimore. And the Ravens weren't good in that game. The good news about that game was I was able to cash some bets against Baltimore again the next couple of weeks. And I learned enough to stay away from Deshaun Kaiser on the road.
Yeah.
So the thought process here is twofold. You can't, I was alluding to double-digit NFL dogs, a double-digit spread. This is one of the games that I was interested in. The only way I'm going to look here is Cleveland. Cleveland has absolutely piqued my interest this week. Not only is Detroit off the Monday night win, where they beat the Packers at Lambeau for only the second time in the last 26 years, much to my chagrin, but they got another divisional matchup next week against Chicago. So this is your classic sandwich spot. And it's a sandwich spot on a short week for a team that doesn't have any history of blowing opponents off the field and winning by double-digit margins. There's a ton of reasons, from a spot standpoint. Cleveland's there from a overall statistical standpoint. The Browns' biggest issues have been red zone offense and red zone defense. Their red zone defense has been atrocious. Their red zone offense has been atrocious. One would think those are fixable issues, that they're not inherently systemic, problem from what Cleveland is running or something like that. They're, that it's so you look at the fact that it's also the Cleveland's issue is all turnovers and red zone. That's why their final scores are so crappy, not because they're getting blown off the field every week. So you certainly make a strong case for the Browns as double-digit dogs in a line, by the way, and I always look at the look-ahead lines. And I don't want to be, the Bucs were -4.5 last week, and now look, they're +2.5. Well, guess what? The Bucs don't have Jameis Winston, and their season ended, Or, Houston was +3, +120 at LA. Well, guess what? That was with Deshaun Watson, and Houston's season just ended. I'm not looking for those kind of look-ahead lines, but I'm looking for a look-ahead line where one team didn't even play, okay? Browns didn't even play last week. So based on one team's result on national TV, the line has now moved 3.5 points. That generally tends to be something of an overreaction. Browns are
I hear you on that. Yeah. Got a game tonight, Teddy, to talk about here. Seattle and Arizona. How about this? 111, 112, kickoff at 8:25 Eastern, 5:25 Pacific. Taking a look, Teddy, not too much line movement during the week there. Opened up offshore, Pinnacle at 6. Chris opened up at 6.5. Now Chris sitting at 6. CG Technology 6.5. Bet Online at 6. So roughly just staying just short of a touchdown. Did see some 6.5s popping up, which you can get them still out there now. Over under has been dropping though, Teddy. 42.5 Pinnacle opened up at. Chris at 43. Now looking at just about 40 across the board. Some 40.5s still popping up there. You saw last week Seattle struggle at home with the Washington Redskins. You saw Arizona go on the road, pick up a victory. Adrian Peterson, 37 carries in that game. Now you come back on a Thursday night slate division game. What are you looking at here, Teddy, in this ball game?
So 2 weeks ago, LaShawn McCoy had his season high in carries for the Buffalo Bills. Had a short week, came back against the Jets. He had 12 carries for 25 yards. Last week, Adrian Peterson sets a career high, not a season high, a career high in carries. And now he's got to come back on a short week, and he's got to face a good defense. That's a problem. Drew Stanton has faced the Seahawks twice before in his career. Stanton's a career backup. That's what he is. The career backups are career backups because that's how good they are. They don't deserve to be NFL starters, and when they start, their team struggles. And if you watch Stanton last week, it wasn't like he was hitting receivers in stride on a regular basis.
Correct. That would be correct.
You know, Stanton's played the Seahawks twice in his career. Arizona scored 3 and 6 points in those two games. They lost 19-3 and 36-6. So when you say, all right, well, here's Arizona, they're going to, what has Seattle done to lay this? And Seattle hasn't done anything to lay this price. They've been terrible chalk all year. But I legitimately worry about Arizona's ability to move the football in this game. And certainly Seattle, remember, prior to the last drive, prior to Cousins and the two passes he completed right at the end of the game in the last, minute, the Seahawks yardage edge was like 430 to 177 or something. I mean, it was a pretty, more than 2-1 over the Redskins. They dominated that game, but, it was Blair Walsh project where they're missing field goals. Missing 2-point conversions, not taking advantage of red zone opportunities. And if that happens here, they're not going to cover. But I don't necessarily look at that as something that the Seahawks can't correct, even though they're doing it on a short week. And, of course, we look at Pete Carroll's track record. First half of the season, he's been okay. You want to make money with Seattle, look at the Seahawks in November. They've been a really good team down the stretch, and I think November's been their best ATS month. I want to look at that now that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think Seattle. I mean, it's hard. I don't like to lay that many points on the road in division on a Thursday night. But if you're looking just at matchups where Russell Wilson's going to go against Stanton, I know they don't play each other technically, but when I look at Seattle's defense, even though Earl Thomas is going to play in this game, Richard Sherman banged up with an Achilles, he's going to give it a go. A couple guys in the defensive line still banged up for Seattle. I think overall, just the program of football teams between one or the other, I think there is some disparaging spots there because I think Russell Wilson can make enough plays to move it down the field. I like the secondary for the Arizona Cardinals. Patrick Peterson back there, the Honey Badger, they're pretty good back there, but they did take some hits earlier on the line with getting pass rush. And if you don't get to Russell Wilson and really fluster him, he makes plays out of the pocket enough to extend the drive. Jimmy Graham's going to be active in this football game tonight. But to me, when I look at betting a game like this, Teddy, it just boils down to, do I think Drew Stanton can go on multiple drives of 5 to 6 first downs and put up points against that Seattle defense? I just don't think he can do it.
No, preaching to the choir over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, let's see. Everybody in the chat box, thanks for chiming in tonight. Over 163 people now currently watching the show. If you haven't done so yet, check out SBRodds.com. Give us a follow at SBR Sports Picks and also subscribe on YouTube. Get those notifications to know each and every time we go live. If you guys want to take a look at a game that me and Teddy want to go over, maybe point you in the right direction, give you some information about those, we can certainly have some fun. We are going to get to a couple games here tonight because we do have college football as well as NFL football tonight, Teddy. Got a little action out there, got a little Sun Belt action, got a little ACC action. Not the most exciting card I've ever seen in my life, but we do have some action, Teddy. Let's take a look here. 113, 114. Ball State, the tremendous offense of Ball State, going to take on the NIU Huskies here. If we take a look at the lines, Pinnacle opened up about 30, Chris about 29.5, still sits right in that range. Actually was a little bit higher this morning, Teddy, hovering around that 31.5 range. Over-under opened up at about 53.5, 52.5, depending on where you were shopping at. Now coming down in that range of 50.5 to 51.5. NIU, clearly the better football team. The question to me is, obviously who's going to cover the side, because that's, we're gamblers and that's what we want to talk about. Over 4 touchdowns to cover. Do I think Northern Illinois can do it? Getting a little bit healthier back on offense, have a good read option game. Ball State has shown me nothing, Teddy, on defense that they even care about stopping anybody, and down to the 3rd, 4th string quarterback on offense, a bad offense. Good luck if you're going to hold your nose and bet Ball State in this one, Teddy.
Sure. I mean, what do you got? 55-3, 31-3, 56-9, 58-17, 46-16. That's Ball State's last 5 games. All right. They're on the losing end of all of them. You don't make money with teams like Ball State. What's your best case scenario here with Ball State? Oh, Northern Illinois wins by
14 points.
24. I mean, the Huskies aren't a team I'm excited about laying the price with. You know, if you wanted to bet against Ball State, you should have been doing it for the last month. The markets have caught up. Pass. Yeah. So I didn't just say pass.
Weeks ago, yeah.
I gave some rationale. Now I say pass. Yeah. No action. These MACtion games, again, people want to bet the MACtion because it's on TV. MAC is not a conference that I follow as closely as others, and I tend not to do a whole lot of MAC betting.
Teddy, as we like to say, if this game was at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon with all the games in there, would you be circling the wagons for this football game, Teddy?
I would not.
Next up here, 115, 116. Another, I don't even want to say bad football game. App State's okay, but Georgia Southern certainly has had its problems. Shea Wirtz, the quarterback's been down, hurt a couple weeks, came back last week, going to be back in the fold again tonight. The question whether is Appalachian State going to get healthy tonight with Jalen Moore. You know, Metters has been out for the season, the wide receiver. Line currently sits at 17.5 and 18 now at Pinnacle. 17.5 CG Technologies, 18.5 offshore at BetOnline. Over under hovering right in that same realm of the Ball State Northern Illinois game at 51.5. If I'm looking at this game, I'm not happy with what App State has done overall as a whole. Do they get their star running back tonight? Yes. But App State laying these points, I'm not interested. Again, I won't be betting this football game, but just as a lean in this situation, as bad as Georgia Southern has been, I'm still not going to lay App State here, Teddy, minus 18 in this spot.
Well, I can't lay. I mean, I really can't lay it. When you look at the numbers, it's so clear. App State, let's see, they're minus 50, they don't cover. The minus 22, they don't cover. The minus 13. Well, that's the one cover they have. It was a brutal beat. You remember the game was against New Mexico State. They had no business covering that number. They're laying 13. They ended up winning by 14. They're minus 11 against Idaho. They didn't cover. The minus 20 against Coastal Carolina. They didn't cover. The minus 4.5 against UMass. They lost outright. The minus 8.5 against Louisiana Row. They lost outright. These aren't the type of teams I want to lay points with. Teams that have failed to cover every single time they've been the favorite so far this season. And all right, yeah, the price is cheap in theory because you're going against a bottom feeder. There's still been absolutely no track record for App State to be involved in games like this one.
And also 117, 118 North Carolina and Pittsburgh tonight. This is one of the games, Teddy, that I literally didn't even take more than 3 minutes to look at this football game. I don't know if you have any advantages here. -9 at Chris, -9 at CG Technologies. Over under. Looks like we're in the wheelhouse here for over-unders at 51.5. This is your prize night tonight if you want to take a look at some of those. All three of them lining up the same. Not interested in North Carolina. If you look at their injury list, it's literally off the computer screen. You actually have to scroll down to get how many injuries they have. So automatically, I'm not involved with North Carolina. Haven't showed me anything this year outside of that Miami game that they even want to play football. Pittsburgh, on the opposite side, have been all right since their quarterback went down with injury. Now looking to cover, maybe get bowl eligible, -9. Not a price I want to get involved with, and not a game, Teddy, I want to get involved with. Any ideas on this one?
Yeah, and it's funny because, I mean, the amount of time that you spent with this game is the amount of time I probably spent with the previous two games combined. You know, App State, Georgia Southern, no. You know, but when you cover the major conference stuff, these are teams that I know well. These teams that I follow all the time, and that's, you know, that's what my job is to be a. But I was definitely, I've been interested in the North Carolina side of the equation. Well aware of the Tar Heels injury list. I bet on that. Made a bunch of money betting against North Carolina earlier this season. After the Duke game was what turned it for me because I had a big bet on them there, and from that I recognized how bad they were and was able to make up for that with wagers against them moving forward because they were a train wreck. They absolutely showed me something in their last game. They outgained Miami, undefeated Miami at home, gave them a battle right down to the wire in that contest. And that's at the tail end of what, like a 7-game losing streak, and all this time before the bye, you know, right before the bye. That was a gutty, gritty effort for a team that had nothing in the tank, and I was impressed with it. And I mean, this is not a good Pitt team. You know, the quarterback play since Max Brown got hurt. You know, they've got a couple of receivers who can make plays, but the Panthers aren't a dominant team on either side of the football. North Carolina, with the extra time to prepare, they have gotten healthier. Be aware. You know, you look at those injury reports, they're going to tell you, they're going to list everything they had before the bye week. Read the local papers, you'll get a better sense of what the Tar Heels look like now, which is still a team that lost a bunch of guys for the season, but they're definitely in better shape this week than they were going into the bye. So lean North Carolina. I did not have a Tar Heels ticket in my pocket, but you know, if the price is right between now and kickoff, I might.
Teddy, coming in from the chat box here, Koji says,
Coming
Teddy,
in from the chat box.
Washington, Stanford, Friday night, Pac-12 after dark, 7:30 p.m. kickoff out on the West Coast here. Line opened up Pinnacle at 7. Line opened up at Chris 7. Now sitting below that touchdown mark, Teddy, at -6. And how about this for an over-under? Opens at 50, now down to 44 at some outlets. Obviously, if you watch Washington play defense, completely kick ass. We know Stanford wants to keep it on the ground. Something's got to give in this game. Teddy, help Koji out here if you have any salient points for him to win some money with.
Salient, nice.
Look at that. See that? Look at that, man. I'm coming up with all this. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I love it. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about this game for 2 minutes. At the end, I'm going to pass. All right, so let me just make that very clear. Washington's defensive stats are stellar. They're through the roof. Everyone recognizes them. They are fully accounted for in the betting marketplace. If Stanford can't run, they can't win. All right, Bryce Love is their entire offense. When Bryce Love doesn't function, Stanford doesn't function. Their quarterback play has been second tier at best, and I don't anticipate it getting a whole lot better against Washington's elite defense. Therefore, and you look what happened last year. What was it? 44-3. It was the worst loss of the David Shaw era. If Stanford can't run, they can't win. And I don't think Stanford can run in this game. Hence, all right, you got to take the Huskies. Here's the problem, though. One, I don't believe in Jake Browning, okay? I've watched him multiple times against good defenses, and Jake Browning is not good. When he's got to make plays in a tight game, Washington will lose because Jake Browning won't make those plays. Two is Washington hasn't played anybody. Just because you don't play anyone doesn't mean you're not a good team. It means you haven't played anyone. But it also means that when you go on the road for a team in the worst loss of the entire David Shaw era in revenge, and Stanford last week, the game's in a quagmire, that game in Pullman. Don't be fooled by the box score. Don't be fooled with the final score. That's not Stanford. There was wind, there was rain, there was snow, it was lousy conditions and a very tough environment for a young quarterback. Be a lot friendlier at the farm than it was up in Pullman. And I don't believe in Browning. And the Huskies, again, where's the value? Where's the underrated part of Washington? There's no underrated part of Washington. They're either overrated or correctly rated. Their defensive stats are through the roof. So it's an interesting game. It's not a game I'm going to bet. And note you were talking about the big moves on the total and the big move on the side and all the money coming. All that was right from the opener. Okay, that was the very first bets. Boom, and everyone else opened 6 and it's been sitting flat on 6 all week. So there hasn't been a ton of movement in that ball game once the initial bets were made.
Yeah, it should be looking at that game, it should be a good game to watch overall if you like defense going into it, because one thing both of these teams are going to try to establish the run out there, that's for sure. Gaskin on Washington, Browning, we'll see if he can open up the passing game there, but Stanford's going to want to control the line, and again, you're taking Washington out of their environment, a la the Seattle Seahawks, where it's deafening, it's loud up in Washington. Now you're going to go down, you're usually playing on turf, a faster team, now you're going to go down on the farm and play on the grass, so that should slow it down. Looking forward to that game. Teddy Jeezy chiming in on the chat box. Notre Dame and Miami. If we look at 165, 166 Saturday night, again, same edition. I'm going to preface this by saying last week, I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan, Teddy. Watch every single ball game, have done since I was a kid. Not impressed all the way through the season watching them as their whole total body of work. It says something when you win football games. You went on the road, you beat North Carolina. You probably should have lost that football game because Carolina had the ball driving it. They didn't fumble with under 2 minutes to go. Handling Syracuse, what I mean by handling is winning a game late. You saw them struggle a little bit with Toledo. They haven't gotten right until Saturday night with Virginia Tech. I didn't have a wager on that football game, but I was asked many times, and I actually leaned towards Virginia Tech on Saturday night because I wasn't sure that Miami was ready for the spotlight at that point. Played very well, but getting another step-up game here with Notre Dame in South Beach, 8 o'clock. Line currently sits anywhere between, actually pretty much 3 across the board with a little bit extra juice on Notre Dame. Over under at 57.5 in this one, Teddy. Miami down a defensive lineman in this one, but Notre Dame is going to bring the pain on offense, but I think Miami's defense will be up to the challenge. It's one of those games, again, I like to abstain from because I don't have a clear feel, even though this is a game I certainly want to watch. Any indicators in this, Teddy, that you like in this ball game or setting up with Notre Dame and Miami here?
So you watched last week, and I watched that game pretty closely as well. I had a wrong side in that contest.
I would have been wrong if I played it.
In my pocket.
Yeah.
And I came up with two takeaways from that contest. One is that Miami, in some ways, played better. In some ways, the same Miami. You know, Rozier's still throwing picks. He's throwing picks with the lead this time. You know, Kane's defense is solid. It's not an overwhelming unit. But I certainly came away with my impression of the contest was more Virginia Tech stunk off the joint than Miami was dominant. You know, Virginia Tech played a bad game. You know, quarterback Jackson was rough. You know, nothing worked for them from the get-go, and it didn't get any better. And they were challenged in a hostile environment. They didn't react well. So I viewed it more Virginia Tech played poorly than Miami played great. Now, as a bettor, you ask yourself this question, and it really is a very simple question, because Miami is not well regarded in the betting marketplace. Obviously, as you get, you know, they were home dogs last week. They're home dogs again this week. You know, their stats are mediocre. The eye test has been mediocre. And a Hurricane team that came into this, you know, they were top 10 squad in a lot of people's power rating. They watch out for Miami this year. You know, they've lost that luster. So you say to yourself, this is a team that if they're playing maybe at the level that we saw last week, they're better than a lot of people's power ratings say they are. And there's value on Miami now. If you say, well, last week was more Virginia Tech being bad than Miami being good, then I think you can, you know, wouldn't be that hard to make a case for Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good one. If Miami wins this football game, that's going to propel them, because one would think they would run the table and get to the ACC title game, which are probably going to match up with Clemson, which would give them the edge on getting into the Final Four playoff there. Teddy, one interesting game, I always like to look at angles when we're coming up this time of year and what you're going to get out of a product. Last week we saw Florida travel to Missouri and get absolutely annihilated. Maybe some people thought you get that bump saying, you know, McElwain's finally out the door. Randy Shannon's going to take over as head coach. They were completely inept. Now they're going to go on the road to play South Carolina. And the interesting thing I wanted to talk to you about, Teddy, line opens up at 7.5, you know, half juiced wherever you were shopping around at. But now I'm starting to see a buyback on Florida with Chris at 5.5. CG Technologies now at 6. Sportsbook.com at 6. Does that mean that I wanted to get your perspective on this, because I think South Carolina is a better football team, and I'm thinking that Florida might have already quit on the season. What would be the reason for a buyback with the Florida Gators heading into this football game after not showing up at all last week? Is it the shock is gone that McElwain's gone and maybe looking to get strong, or maybe South Carolina just can't put teams away? But Florida's not a backable team for me right now, Teddy.
Oh, and if I'm playing, I can only take Florida in this game. See, did you watch the Missouri game?
I did. I mean, I watched it all the way through.
Okay, so what happened? I mean, what it looked to me, what looked to me like happened in the Missouri game was Missouri did what they're capable of doing right now. They jumped all over them. That game was over in the first quarter. You know, Florida went there. They got smacked. Boom, ball game. You know, they're certainly mentally fragile, and they took punches. And that game was over early. South Carolina's offense isn't Florida's offense. You know, everyone's like, oh, Jake Bentley. You know, let me see. How many times the Gamecocks thrown for 300 yards this year? Twice. Probably
not much. Yeah, it's not really they're not really into runaway games. Have a decent record. Where they get beat by Georgia last week. Put up a little bit of a fight in that one, but obviously Georgia held them down on offense, so not that impressive.
No, but I mean, it's the level of explosiveness. You can't compare what South Carolina's doing offensively with what Missouri's doing offensively, because Missouri's doing it with pace as well. You know, and that's the difference. You know, the difference is here's this Florida team that nobody. You are certainly not the only bettor that has that opinion. No, I don't want Florida. You know, but the prevailing mainstream narrative. Oh, they didn't buy in for McElwain. They didn't buy in for Shannon. I'm not buying that prevailing mainstream narrative. I think that what happened last week was circumstantial. They may not react well to adversity, but if they get up to a 7-0 lead in that game instead of a 7-0 deficit, it may have played out a whole lot differently in terms of effort for the Florida Gators. And that could happen this time around against the South Carolina team that, as you mentioned, doesn't win many games by big margins.
Now you're right. By the way, Teddy, we had world famous Will Smith in here, the official Will Smith, saying we're being kind of boring right now. So, I mean, hey, maybe, you know, Jade is at home, and, you know, maybe you got a movie to make or something like that. But I thought that was interesting from Will Smith popping in there to help us out, Teddy.
What, you want to rock out with your cock out? I mean, what are we going to do here, dude? I mean, how are we going to get less boring? We're talking about sports and sports betting on the biggest games for the weekend. If you don't like that, you're on the wrong YouTube channel.
Hey, Will Smith was surfing around. He found us, Teddy. We're I mean, he wanted to pop in and share his thoughts on that. You know,
I appreciate that, but I mean, this isn't the kind of show. You know, I love Jimmy the Bag. This isn't a Jimmy the Bag show, dude. We're not going to be screaming and yelling, and I'm going to kick your. And I appreciate what Jimmy does, but that's not what we do. So, thanks for the comment. Cheers. I love Jimmy. Jimmy's the best, but it's a different show. Yeah.
Good luck in your next movie. Teddy, one other interesting game also in college football, 159, 160. Saturday, 8 p.m. is going to be a primetime game, 5 p.m. Pacific. If we take a look, that's TCU and Oklahoma. I always like these spots. You have Oklahoma go up against their arch rival, what you would say their arch rival, even though it seems like they beat them every year. Oklahoma State now coming off of that and playing another decent football team in TCU and getting them at home. Line opened up at Chris at 8, has moved back to 6.5 in this spot. Oklahoma seems propelled. They won. Not much defense in that game. But one of these spots that you look at, Teddy, I want to pick your brain on. How do you feel that these college kids, I mean, Baker Mayfield's been around. Seems like he's been around 15 years in college football. Coming off of that emotional win on the road, now coming back home, you're expected to beat TCU. Gary Patterson, good football coach. He's going to have his football team ready. How do you view Oklahoma being around that touchdown favorite, and do you think it's right? And also the main part of that is, do you think Oklahoma's going to suffer a little bit of a letdown in the situation, or should they be able to just say, hey, you know what? We won last week. We're going to win again this week.
What's the last Will Smith movie that you saw?
Well, I don't. You know what's a good point in that? Maybe my.
It's like I'm thinking like since Independence Day. Like, what is he? Yeah. I know he's
my kid liked the Suicide Squad, the one where he was. No,
I didn't see that.
Person, whatever it is. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Hey, that's why he has time, Ted. That's why he's in here. Things aren't going so well.
Oklahoma, TCU. So we saw them the sharp money come in against both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State this week, and I think some of that's it's just plain your classic knee jerk. These teams played a huge that was a wild game last week, back and forth. And one would expect a natural letdown off of that type of effort. But specifically when it comes to TCU, I've seen it now enough from Kenny Hill that I'm not going to get involved on TCU, certainly not away from home. The last couple of weeks, against Iowa State, the offense didn't work. Against Texas, that offense didn't work. I know they got the money against Texas, and I had the Longhorns in my pocket. Texas didn't move the football, neither did TCU. And that's a concern for me if you're going up against Oklahoma. The spot is certainly factored into the point spread now that the markets have moved, with Oklahoma laying less than a touchdown. From a defensive standpoint, the Sooners have prior to last week they had played much better, and even last week, they made some plays on the defense side of the football. I don't want TCU. This time around, I guess if I'm playing, I'm laying, and it's not a game I'm going to play.
Teddy, one game I'm really interested in. Again, I haven't moved on any college football games, made any wagers yet. I usually like to, Thursday night, Friday, unless there's one of those lines where I just can't lose, where an injury is going to, impact the football game. The one I really like here, Teddy, 177-178, Alabama and Mississippi State. Last weekend on Saturday, I did pick up a win taking UMass, figuring that all the eggs will be in the basket for Mississippi State following up the following week with Alabama. Didn't know, but to my, delight, turning on the football game, top 3 wideouts, they decided to sit for Mississippi State. And down at the half, where they needed Fitzgerald and all he could muster up from being a quarterback on the run, I believe he ended up running for over 125 yards in that football game, pull out that victory. But heading into Alabama, now the first thing that, most novice gamblers would even look at and say, you know what? Alabama at 13.5, 14.5. We don't get to see that very much. Alabama down another few starters on the defensive side. Mississippi State waiting on this football game. But my question is, do they have enough firepower? But the good part of it is when we're bettors, we're not asking Mississippi State, Teddy, to win the football game. We're asking them to stay within 2 touchdowns. Last week you saw with LSU, what was that final? 24-10. Alabama's going to have good defense, and they're going to be able to replace, whoever was injured, it seems like. But now you're getting into those maybe second, third string linebackers, couple injuries on the defensive front line. Do we think Mississippi State can hang around in this football game? Because when we show and take a look, you say, man, they really hammered, Kentucky. They hammered, who was the Texas A&M on the road. They beat them as well. But when they had to step up in competition, it was on the road. But the Georgia game and also the Auburn game didn't show very well in those. Is that enough to maybe knock you off of maybe making a case for Mississippi State, or can they be a live dog in this one, Teddy?
You had a choice between Dak Prescott or Nick Fitzgerald. Who you take?
Dak Prescott or what I know now? I mean, to me in college, almost the same type of quarterback to me.
All right. So Alabama faced Dak 2 years ago. Dak led him to 6 points. Last year was 51-3. All right. You can take Mississippi State if you want. Alabama's really good.
Yeah.
They're really, 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 really good. And you can step in front of that and say, oh, look, it's only a couple touchdowns. By all means, knock yourself out. 51-3 last year, 31-6 with the NFL quarterback 2 years ago. I'm not convinced Dan Mullen's offense works in this game. And I was wrong. I thought Alabama would get it done against LSU last week, and I was wrong. Maybe I have that team a little bit overvalued right now, but I'm not in any rush to step in front of Alabama when I'm looking for teams to bet against. I don't want to bet against necessarily the very best teams in college football.
Now, you're right. Just looking at it, because sometimes, you can say, you want to be as sharp or contrarian as you want. Oh, that line seems cheap. There must be a reason for it. But everybody has that dilemma. The same thing with me. You try to build a case for Mississippi State, and then you say, am I sure I want to go against Alabama? Because the one thing that Mississippi State does well is they have a good running quarterback. Let's just say it doesn't go so well in the first quarter, Teddy, where he runs the ball 6 times and comes up with a leg or a shoulder injury and can't be that effective on the ground. What do they have left? Because they're still a little bit banged up at wide receiver. And again, it's not easy, Teddy, to get the ball on your 20-yard line and say, I'm about to go 80 yards on this Alabama defense and do it repeatedly when you're trying to run your quarterback. Should be an interesting game to watch. But again, you're right. Like, do you want to step in front of Alabama and you're not getting a 35.5 cushion out of conference where Alabama is just going to play its fourth-string guys by the start of, the third quarter, midway through the third quarter? Should be an interesting one. And we all know what Alabama likes to say, like, hey, if Mississippi State says they're waiting for this one, we think we can hang around. That little extra fuel that Alabama seems to get when another team thinks they're on the come up. Should be a fun one. I believe what's Mississippi State, 16th or 15th in the country. So they're ranked appropriate, but can they hang with them? Should be a pretty good one there. But you're right. I mean, who wants to step in front of Alabama at this point?
Well, the other thing worth noting is that Alabama, every single day in practice, that defense faces a pretty good mobile quarterback of their own. So it's not like they come in and face Mississippi State and go, wow, we haven't seen this. They see it every day.
Teddy, where does the time go every Thursday? Look at that. I mean, just like two old gentlemen playing chess in the park. The time just goes and goes and goes. We don't have very much time left. I know I like to give out some plays here. I'll put it this way. I like to give out plays that are happening tonight. There are 3 really bad college football games to me and 1 really bad pro game. The one thing I'm going to lean on is the Ball State Northern Illinois game. I'm not going to take a side. I'm going to lean on the over at Chris, which was 51 earlier. Took a little bit of that. And for only Ball State's offense stinks, I get that. But I just think Northern Illinois, Teddy, can name a price for whatever they want to put up on their offense. 38 points, 44 points. If I can just get double digits out of Ball State, I'll lean on that over 51 in this. Do you want to give the people out there something to chew on tonight, Teddy, if you have anything?
Yeah, sure. On Sportsbit, we used the Seattle Seahawks minus the points as our play of the day earlier in the week. And, that line got bet up. And then we've seen that, the wise guys are taking a little bit of Arizona now. Back down to 6, and at 6, again, I'm expecting Arizona to struggle to put the biscuit in the basket this week. I don't look at the Cardinals' offense likely to succeed. So, Sportsbit play of the day was the Seahawks, and I would have no hesitation continuing to recommend that at the current number.
There we go. Let's do it. That's been the closing line for Thursday, November the 9th, 2017, powered by the good people at sportsbookreview.com. Teddy, as always, during football season, will appear with us here on the closing line, talking football, talking whatever's going on in the chat box. Does a lot of stuff around here. SportsBit, sportsbookreview.com. Check out Teddy. Give him a follow. Teddy_covers on Twitter. Always a lot of fun with you on Thursdays, Teddy, so I do thank you for coming on here. Check out SBRodds.com. Check out at SBR Sports Picks on Twitter and also on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button every time anybody goes live here on sportsbookreview.com. Get that notification and join us in the chat box. From all of us at sportsbookreview.com, good luck on your wagers, and we hope you helped you beat the closing line. Thanks a lot, Teddy.
Cheers.